Hi, my name is Orji. I'm the founder and CEO of Trustcrow, which is a Nigerian-based instant escrow platform that removes risk and protects your interest when transacting. And we just closed our $550,000 pre-seed round.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome to the Fundraising Debrief, the podcast where we share the real stories behind successful founders and the recent VC financing rounds. My name is Vlad Cazacu and I'll be your host today as we interview Joe Orji and follow his journey from Nigeria to the States and back to Nigeria. We touch upon his international background, his real estate roots, and the founding and fundraising story of Trustcrow. Joe brings a lot of wisdom and tactical advice on leadership, when to go all in on your idea, fundraising, and company building. For more information about running a self-fundraising round, including show notes, highlight clips, and exclusive scenes, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Fundraising Debrief, as well as on our website at thefundraisingdebrief.com. This episode is brought to you by Flowlie, the all-in-one fundraising hub used by thousands of founders from 70-plus countries around the world to plan their rounds, research investors, share their pitch decks, and track access. Now, let's dive right in. Joe, such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Really excited for this conversation.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
It's really exciting to learn more about Trustcrow and your pre-seed round. But before we dive into the round and what you're building, would like to spend a little bit of time on the beginning of your career, right? You spent your first 7 years after graduation in real estate in the United States. Walk us a little bit through Joe's life pre-MBA and your beginning of your real estate career.
You nailed it. So, Nigerian by birth, migrated to US in 1989. I lived on the East Coast most of my life. After graduating from Tufts, I worked for a very large real estate investment services company, and we were essentially sell-side advisors. And we worked for investors. So what we did is we basically got engagements to sell an investor's commercial real estate property portfolio, and would basically sell that from one investor to another investor. So it was very sales heavy, also kind of financial underwriting. And the key thing with that is that we ate what we killed. And because, frankly, I'm a hustler, I like working hard. So I really liked that role. I did pretty well in it. And it was hardcore, man. It was hardcore hustling. It was ground and pound. It was dialing for dollars, as we used to say back then. So a lot of cold calls. And it was just, imagine a movie Boiler Room, except we weren't selling equities. So it was very interesting. And it was just kind of my first foray into real estate. And a lot of great relationships back then. Still have many of those relationships now. So yeah, I did that for about 6 years. And actually, I did that from 2004 to 2009. So within that time, there was the Great Recession. So you saw your income go up like this and then come down like this and then kind of go up again. Big time roller coaster where you made good coin, you lost a lot of coin, and then you made some coin again. So it was really fantastic. And I wanted to really transition from advisory to really being a principal, to being an owner. So in order to do that, went to Georgetown, got my master's in Georgetown, focused on a bunch of different things, finance, real estate, and also entrepreneurialism. And so do you want me to stop there or keep going, by the way?
No, feel free to go. I mean, my next question would be, walk us a little bit through a transition on the MBA and then moving back to Nigeria, but I think you're just getting straight to that. Yeah. So curious to understand that journey.
I mean, I wanted to go from being an advisor to being a principal and an owner. And frankly, the best way for me to do that was to retool a bit. So I decided to get a master's and I went to Georgetown because it was right there in DC. And it was cool. Focus on a bunch of different things, including finance, real estate, and also entrepreneurship. My dad was an entrepreneur. So I really, how do I say, just really admired that growing up, watching him, and I try to emulate him as best as possible. He used to go out trying to close deals. So I grew up going out trying to chase deals and close deals. And at that time, Nigeria was really kind of growing pretty significantly. My parents had did a great job of kind of never letting us forget where we're from, roots. Had kind of always had an interest there and always had an eye there. And so as I was leaving school, I applied and was able to get a couple internships in Nigeria. And it was interesting. I worked for a development firm while I was there, and it went well. They liked me, and I did pretty well. I felt was really the key role in real estate. Because you're at ground zero. Acquiring existing buildings is cool, but I just thought development was it. And in addition to that, Nigeria was a developing country. So I said, wait a second, I can do development in a developing country. So that was the theory. And that company decided to give me an offer when I was leaving Georgetown. I took the crazy decision to come back to Nigeria, having not lived there 24 years prior. Uh, so I moved back to Nigeria in 2013 and started working for Landmark Africa. So it was pretty incredible. It's pretty awesome.
I'm curious now that you're in Nigeria, have started pursuing this kind of change in not necessarily career, but change in focus, right? You're developing now. You've made the big jump to move from United States there, and at some point you make another big jump, which is starting Trustcrow. So, be very interested to understand your thinking around. You know what? I've already taken the risk to go back to a developing country. I think the best thing to do here is start a tech company and raise around. So let's open up, the head and understand like what was in Joe's mind during that time.
It's very logical, and I'll tell you what it is. So I'd always loved tech, always been super passionate about tech. I mentioned while I was at Georgetown, I took entrepreneurial courses and also tailored some of my education towards entrepreneurs and try to start something there, but just didn't focus on it. Moved to Nigeria 2013. Part of the reason why I decided to pull the trigger and move to Nigeria and work for Landmark is Nigeria had really poor municipality property databases. In America, you can look up the property records of any home anywhere in America at any given time. Just go to the counties and the property database register. And have all the titles are electronic, and because of that, there's no such thing as property fraud. It's all documented all as well. In Nigeria, property fraud is a massive thing. Why? Because it's not digitized. It's literally still paper. It's crazy. So municipalities keep these property records in paper form. Doing title search is a pain. It takes a long time. It probably costs the country probably about $6 billion a year in just issues, fraud, lack of investments coming in, just poor operations. And I just said, listen, I was young, I had a lot of ambition. I said, I can build this thing. So when I graduated Georgetown, before I had kind of gotten a job offer, I was trying to build this thing, sitting in my apartment in DC, making calls into Nigeria, doing research. People were getting calls from this random US number, from this random guy. I'm doing research like, who the hell is this guy? I was pushing. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I need to actually be on the ground to actually push this thing. So I was like, wait a second. I can have this be my side hustle while I'm trying to build a company, work for Landmark during the day. So earn some coin, learn the terrain, and build this sometime in the future. When I did come to Nigeria, as it turns out, I can't really side hustle. I'm terrible at side hustling. I'm 0 1. I'm extremely extreme. So I'm either all in or zero. I was probably working, I don't even know, 70, 80 hours. I did try in like 2015 with a couple guys, try to build this thing out. Two other guys, both of them moved to America, so the dream died again. I left Landmark about 6 years in, 6 years into coming to Nigeria, and I started. So at this point, I had about 16 years of this experience. So I started my own company, my own development company, leveraging experience, and we started a company called Brookstone. I started with a partner, and we built a pretty awesome apartment building. It's about 140,000 square meter, 10-story building in Lagos. It actually overlooks a golf course and overlooks a polo club. It's called condominium because it was the first U.S. style residential building. Most of the properties here were more kind of European, more British. So we took a shot. Everybody said it wouldn't work. They were crazy. It just wasn't going to work. And I felt differently. I had zero empirical information to that effect. It was a lot of gut, which is very dangerous. Again, leveraging my experience and my background, and again, being very ambitious. And when you're young, you're kind of stupid as well. Yeah. So we developed a very strong brand, able to raise the funding. It was our first project, and it was a monster. We probably raised about $14 million for it. So we learned some very serious lessons. The key lesson we learned was payments. Vlad and I signed up for a contract. He's my supplier. If I'm lucky, he'd delay me. If I'm unlucky, he'd deliver with poor quality, which also costs time, money, delivery work, also frustration, arguments. So you develop business to be a real estate developer, spending time because you have to like apply to the police, apply to like different financial organizations to go after people. Hotness. And I spoke to other businesses, several other businesses, and they echoed the exact same thing. Sometimes their stories were even worse than ours. My thoughts about supply, or as I put it, oversupply in luxury real estate in Vegas, what I felt about the skill sets of real estate folks versus tech folks here, what I felt about the ability to finance real estate projects versus technology projects. So I took a long, hard assessment of all these things, and then I pulled the trigger and I told my wife and I told my family, I said, I don't understand. Like, you don't move to a new market and in such a short period of time. I did the best I could to explain my reasons why, and they still did believe me. So I said, okay, no problem. This is how I sold them. Remember, I used to be a salesperson. So I said, no problem. I will give it a year, and I give you 12 months. And if it doesn't work, and if I'm not able to get this thing off the ground, and then raise to kind of help it take off, then I'll go back to real estate. Registered the business November 1st, and then we started designing. So I started writing the flows in November, December. MVP, we worked throughout Christmas and New Year's this year. MVP out in February 9th. I started piloting March 1st. Got small bit of traction in a 2-month pilot. So start the pilot April 30th. Started raising literally the next day, May 1st. We set out to raise $500,000. And at that time, you could figure what's going on. Fed is raising rates. Crypto is going to oblivion. Deals are dying left, right, and center. All my HBS friends, all my private equity friends said that it took them 6 to 9 months to raise a similar amount at a similar stage as I was, and told me to get ready for that same time. So I said, okay, no problem. We finished in around 8 weeks. We closed out around June 30th, and then money finished coming in end of July. So yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to
it. Fantastic. I mean, big congrats on the raise and everything you were able to accomplish in such a short period of time. Before I go to my next question, I want to just say for the record, Vlad would deliver on time and better quality than originally expected. But just to make sure that this part gets recorded as well. But I'm really curious to dive into that raise, because you brought up the conversation exactly where I wanted to take it, which is in the midst of the whole economic downturn, the whole financial world sort of going belly up, and everybody wondering, like, are the private markets going to look the same as they did in the past? Are we kind of losing all the momentum? Are companies getting funded? You were able to raise more than you originally planned for that pre-seed and successfully do it in 8 weeks. Let's take it step by step, like your preparation, your strategy going into it, how that evolved over time, the number of meetings that you had. Walk us through the setup phase, and then let's go into what actually happened.
I've been talking to a lot of people about this since we started the company. I speak to people and I just take notes. And I just keep notes on who I should go back to. Whenever I went out, didn't matter where I was, cocktail party, just in the street, I was always tell people about it. So when we started the business, I actually knew what most of the objections would be. So during that time when we were building things out, we literally took care of that. And the second thing it did for me is just created a list of people to go to when we started fundraising. So by the time we went out to the street to start fundraising, I had a list of about 200 people that I was going to call. On May 1st, I actually started a little bit early because I had some close friends. So April 30th, I just started like firing these things out by WhatsApp. giving them a few days at a time and just handling the phone. Remember, again, so I used to be an advisor. So it's sales heavy. I love sales. It's just come very natural. I think we sent the deck out to 70 people in the first week. I think we started like 10 to 10 every day, Monday through Sunday. Sunday started at 2 because give a few hours in church. I should actually take a step back and actually talk about why I feel we were successful. And I feel we were successful in our fundraise for the same reason that we were successful in developing the building. For the fundraise, we did what most people would never do, which is we completely ignored VCs. Completely went after family and friends. It was an FNF round, complete family and friends. Right? So why did I do that? So you just need to be cautious of who you are, what your strengths are. Like I said, I had 20 years of work experience. I'm a pretty good networker, so I'm always meeting people, and I have a large database, of contacts. And also, many of these people had seen me actually start a different business and a different project, and execute and carry out and complete that project in some of the hardest times. We actually couldn't have started that project at the worst time, because in the middle of that 3.5 year project, we had 2 recessions. So it was only by the grace of God that we actually finished this thing. This thing was meant to be taken out. But again, also working 85 hours a week, just never say never. Just this thing has. So those folks saw me execute that. I'm not a young kid. I've got not just 20 years of bullshit experience. Experience is whatever. Experience. 20 years of actually executing, exiting, and delivering and making money for investors on 2 different continents. So I got experience in the US and in America. I think most people, a lot of folks have gone through 1 recession. People a little bit more experienced, kind of generation have gone through 2. So I've actually gone through 3 recessions. Tech bubble. I was around for the tech bubble, GFC, and whatever we had from the COVID kind of crisis. So I'm battle scarred. At this point, it doesn't faze me. When COVID happened, all my friends were just going crazy. Because when I was working in DC doing GFC, unfortunately, people were literally jumping up, losing a million jobs a month. And I worked through in real estate. I really watched my income dive down 89, like 90%, and sticking to it and having it build back up. Going through that, you get really tough skin. So when COVID happened and the world was going crazy, and all my friends were just panicking, going crazy, just seeing their stock portfolios go down. I was actually telling them, buy now. Now's the time to buy now, buy oil, buy stock. I'm just telling them, buy equity, buy stuff. My friends were like, you're crazy, there's no oil. And you just saw everything go back up. I have a kind of a hard affinity for risk. I like to think I take calculated risks, but we take risks. I think when I started fundraising, targeting people who knew me and knew what I had executed, leveraging that. What we're really leveraging was founder profile candidate, because we had 0 rev, 0. The product was still being built. We had a dirty, stinking, terribly ugly MVP, but at least we had something, right? It was almost a team of 1. If you look at it for high level, we actually had no business investing in the business. Didn't have any rev, didn't have any product. It was a fleeting team. Guy had never built a tech company before, right? And the world was going to shit. And we're raising a $7 million valuation when there were some fintechs who actually had some track.
Absolutely. I do have a quick follow-up there, because I feel like I'm hearing like 3 intertwining narratives around, 1, the strategy coming in, the sheer number of people reaching out, the sales playbooks that you've developed over time and you're applying to the fundraising. The other one is the threat of execution. And I'm going to couple, let's say, the mindset with that just like relentless pursuit of excellence and being able to work 80, 90 hours a week and making sure that happens, executing on the strategy you set in place. And the third thread is around relationship building, right? Because you talked about years of experience in business and the ability to build a relationship with those people, ideally make them money in the past through the real estate investments, and now presenting them with the opportunity of doing it again in a different industry, sure, with some different caveats. But looking in retrospect to your success in this fundraise, I'm wondering between the strategy and the planning, the execution and the mindset, and third, the depth and breadth of relationships with those people, how would you weigh that in regards to the actual success of the fundraise at the end of the day?
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it very well. So we had a launch, and we had some of our investors speak at that launch, and many of them said, "Listen, they invested in the founder, they invested in the guy, right? They just felt he was able to do it." But when you segmented those things, you talk about the strategy, right, which is actually going out, not going after VCs, putting them off to the next round. I'll get to them next, right? After building this base, going after friends and family. And by the way, we have 23 investors in this round. So what we did there is we're creating a base. So we have a solid base of people. As a builder, no matter how awesome your building is up top, if you have a shitty foundation, it's going to fall down. So it was having a strategy, like you said. And also, the same thing goes in when you're running a business. We know that Trustcrow can be used in practically every sector in Africa and in America. And we will expand to America. We will expand across Africa. But that's a very big elephant, and to accomplish that by being very, very small. We're starting in real estate. Okay, so we're ignoring every other sector, just starting in real estate right now. Just like we ignored all of the investors, just focusing on them. So you have to have a very narrow strategy with the understanding that you'll get seen and heard by other people. Our lead is actually a VC, but I had no clue who he was. I sent our deck to a very good friend of mine, spoke to him about it. Said, "Yeah, listen, I know some guys. I'll introduce you to some guys." And introduced us, like one of his partners is fantastic, is a solid, incredible VC. Shout out to Rabbit Capital, really awesome guy, George, great dude. So the plan worked, and so there's that, and there's the execution. There's also the brand new relationships. So my educational background is finance. My professional background is real estate. My passion is actually sales and marketing, and I do a pretty decent job of developing a brand around the concept. With Trustcrow, even though it's an instant escrow business, we're not selling escrow, we're actually selling trust, and we're selling certainty. In the fundraise, the brand that we develop is, listen, you're investing in founder profile, right? Because you have a lot of options. You can go and invest in other profile folks who may know how to code and so on and so forth, and might be a little bit younger and show, they have other things, right? I don't know how to code. What I do know how to do is execute, point blank period. That's what we sold to people. It was that kind of, listen, we're building a brand around a past track and our ability to execute, and that's what you're buying into. You're buying into track. You're buying into track record and prior execution. And the last thing is obviously the truth of the matter is leverage a lot of relationships, and that's why I take this thing very seriously, because I know people understand that it's equity and it's startup and it's high risk. Like I said, my parents invested, so that's 42 years of relationship, but they have, guys who I've known for 20 years who invest in this. These are service relationships that we're leveraging. So all those things weighed in is what helped us succeed.
So what about, right before we jump into the rapid fire towards the end of this episode, I'm curious to hear more about the people that said no, right? Because I think not a lot of people are speaking about this. You were talking about building on trust and selling that founder track record and the execution. What were some of the reasons people didn't buy into that?
I'm going to give a bit of I'm going to put together an answer. I'm going to add a few things into it. So far, I have a great friend. Again, this is a 25-year relationship. His name is Brett Stackhouse. He's actually a VC. He runs Mount Sinai's venture. And I remember he once told me, "Joe, VCs don't know anything about it." He was like, "Venture capitalists don't know anything about venture capital." And he tried to explain to me. I was like, "Dude, you're just being an idiot." He's like, "Okay, watch, you'll see." But anyway, there's nothing wrong with saying no. You don't have to invest. But there was two kind of guys that said no. There are guys who said no, and you just really respected their assessment, how they went by. The reason why is because they humbled themselves. They actually said, "I don't know." So they humbled themselves and they asked questions and to get knowledgeable about the market, because you can't know every single industry. There's some guys that, "Listen, I think this is super interesting. I think you referenced better than anybody I've ever spoken to in the past." So he called a bunch of people we know. And even with great references, And with my track, he was like, no, I want to stay in touch because I think it's interesting. I think maybe he just wanted to see us get in certain areas. And till today, I have tremendous respect for him. When I traveled to England, I spent 2 hours with the guy and said no, because again, just keep my relationship. And then there was the other set of people who were like, just didn't really understand, like, not just my business, but business. I know that the industry is small and all this. I'm trying to be very respectful, but I've got 20 years of operating experience. So I'll be talking to someone who's referred to me, talking to an associate who's probably 7 to 10 years of finance experience, never operated a business. And I'm telling him certain things. So he rebuts, he gives me his objection. And I give him a counter objection that is rooted in history and truth. This guy's looking at me like, yeah, he's like, what the fuck am I talking about? He has zero clue, zero. And I'm just like, I think this guy actually knows what the hell he's talking about. But you have to be super respectful. Dude, a lot of guys actually, so it's fine if you have but show humility and ask questions. I gained a lot of respect from him in his investment. Those are the best.
What a great way to end the main part of the episode. And it's interesting because I feel like this is advice not only for founders, but also for investors for listening to this episode. I'm going to make sure that we make some highlights out of this because there's a lot of depth to what you said about the way people can show interest and intellectual curiosity, even though they may not know as much about the business at hand, compared to trying to just assume that they know better because they know everything compared to someone who actually has experience in the space. But we'll leave the VC rants for an appendix to the episode. I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time to go through some of the rapid fire questions. So I'm going to shoot 3 quick questions for them, expecting 3 quick answers. They're not necessarily business related, just to get a chance for more people to understand Joe and his background. And the first question that we always start with is
I don't owe him money anymore. I already paid him back.
That's a good one. The one we usually start with is, what is one thing that people don't know about Joe that you feel more people should be aware of?
I used to be fun. I'm not so much fun anymore.
I'm wondering if you want more people to know that. But I guess I'm not allowed to ask follow-up questions, so I'll stick to my own rules. Question number 2, a long-standing tradition in our company that we wanted to bring to this podcast as well, which is ending every conversation with a point of gratitude. Looking back on your career and your entrepreneurial adventure, who are you most thankful for?
Well, 2, God and my wife.
Great answer, and such a great way to end the podcast. My gratitude goes to you, Joe. Really appreciate taking 1 hour of your busy schedule in between the back-to-back meetings to share your journey with us and our listeners. I think we had an amazing conversation with really insightful answers, and I'm really excited to have you back on the podcast at the seed round, and we can continue the VC rant then.
This is super awesome. Thanks a lot for having me on. Big shout out to my brother Mark over there. Big shout out to the guys at Flowlie. Right? I know this is a different podcast, but seriously, I just have to plug this in. If any founder is raising and you're not using Flowlie, check it out. Seriously, it's a fantastic product. Yeah, check it out.
Really, really appreciate you. It's a premiere for the podcast, so we'll make it to the final edit. Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks, dude.
What a great conversation. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and be on the lookout for a new episode in 2 weeks as we interview another amazing startup founder and debrief their successful fundraising story. This podcast was made possible by Flowlie. If you're currently fundraising or planning to do so in the near future, create a free account today on Flowlie at flowlie.com. That's FLOWLIE.com. And get access to an investor database curated just for you and powerful deck sharing capabilities with advanced access and engagement tracking. Are you ready to take your fundraising journey to the next level and join thousands of founders across the globe who use the platform every single day? Find the discount code in the show notes and sign up today. That's it for today's episode. See you next time.